Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues. Welcome to the, here we are, the Licensing and Appeals Committee being held here on Wednesday the 30th of June, and we are being recorded, as you know, so welcome everybody. A little bit of housekeeping first before we get into the agenda. There are no fire alarms scheduled, so if the fire alarm goes off, it's the real thing, and evacuate. Simply follow the fire signs, and the assembly points are clearly marked in the rear car park. And a new bit of procedure, you will be mic'd. Now we've got one of our officers there, Tommy, who's got a hand mic, so when you wish to speak, please indicate. Tommy will walk over to you with the microphone and you speak into the mic. And I would be grateful if you'd try not to touch the mic, because then he's got to go and do a deep clean on the mic. Is that fairly clear for everybody? Thank you. Thank you for your forbearance. So, apologies. Apologies first of all. Well, I've got apologies here from Councillor Swindell and Councillor Morley, Councillor Mrs. Morley. Any other apologies? Okay. Moving on. Public participation. Do we have any of the members of the public wanting to ask questions or to contribute by expressing views? Nobody registered, so we haven't got anybody. The minutes of the last meeting are the next item on our agenda. And I have a copy here, and it's the minutes of the meeting of the 15th of April 2021. I'm sure, ladies and gentlemen, you all have copies. Can I have someone to move that they're a true and accurate record of the minutes of that meeting? Moved, and seconder, and seconded. Thank you. Moving on. Interests. Do any members have any interests in any of the agenda items which we are going to discuss and decide this evening? No interest, thank you. And we're now just about to move into the agenda proper, the items. Before we do, if you'd just bear with me for a little second, it's just a couple of comments from the chair, if you wouldn't mind. One, I'd like to thank the staff for all the hard work that they've done, our officers, in getting this sorted out and getting us all together so we can meet this way. So thank you for that, and I'm sure that will be minuted, that we're thanking the staff. And then the other one is, I'm sure that colleagues will join me in congratulating Councillor Wayne on being elected as the civic chair. So congratulations, I'm sure you're going to have a very busy year. Probably great timing for this year, because I'm imagining as soon as we're unlocked, you'll be off the room. So that's just from me. So moving on now, so we're on to item 5. This is to receive a report providing members with a summary of the work relating specifically to the Licensing Act 2003 and Gambling Act 2005 undertaken by the licensing section during the last financial year and the previous 2 financial year periods, to allow comparisons to be made. This updates the annual report for 2021, which was considered at the October 2020 meeting, as the July 2020 meeting was cancelled. I think that's over to you to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, well, as you've said, this report provides members with a summary of the work carried out by the licensing team in relation to the 2003 Licensing Act and the 2005 Gambling Act in particular. As Councillor Morley has just said, there is information also from the previous 2 financial year periods to allow comparisons to be made. So since the implementation of the Licensing Act back in 2005, this committee has always received an annual report at its first meeting of the civic year. However, the meeting last year, planned for July, was cancelled, as Councillor Morley says, and some members will remember that at the October 2020 meeting, I did a report on the 2021 information up until the end of September. So this time round, with it being the first meeting of the new civic year, I've done the whole of that financial year as well. So I wasn't intending to go through the whole of the report, Chair, but it's perhaps worth highlighting just a couple of things. So if you look at the table in paragraph 1.12 on page 5 of your papers, this provides information mainly on the number of applications that have been received by the licensing team, the different types of licence applications in respect of alcohol and entertainment. Not surprisingly, the number of applications received in 2021 was significantly less than during previous years. The most significant drop was in temporary event notices, which we call TENs. They are temporary event notices, and they're usually obtained to allow one-off small-scale events. And we usually process around 600 of those a year, and you'll see from the table that in the last financial year we processed just under 100 in total, so we were 500 less than what we normally produce. Minor variations, you'll see from the report that officers are delegated to grant minor variations, provided they are just that. They do have to be for just minor changes to a licence, nothing significant, and certainly not anything where there will be either an increase in capacity or an increase in the hours of sale for alcohol. You'll see from the report that the few that we did are mainly for a change in the layout of the premises, where it's just a change of the plan. Again, we have had fewer applications from publicans wanting to vary their licences than in previous years, although I suspect this might change in the future if some licensees wish to make some of the temporary structures that you will have seen in pubs and restaurants in your areas. And if they want to make those permanent, then there will come a time where they will have to vary their licence to do that. At the moment, the government introduced some relaxations with regard to planning requirements and licensing requirements to make it easier for business recovery. You'll see, I must apologise actually for the format of the report, Chair. I don't quite know what went wrong with all the numbering. It started off okay and it seems to have a mind of its own. So the Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee hearings that we've had throughout 2021, I mean, that's not just the licensing team that are involved in those. The committee team play a very big part, as do the legal team. So out of the 14 new premises licences that we received during 2021, so they're full premises licences for premises that have not been licensed in the past, to sell alcohol or alcohol and provide entertainment. Only 2 of the applications last year attracted representations that couldn't be resolved and had to be referred to meetings of the Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee to be determined. And as the report tells you, one of those was just for a coffee shop, and that was granted by committee with additional conditions, and the other one was for a small annual music festival to take place at Pike Hall, which is the same site, or part of the same site, where the Why Not Festival normally takes place. That licence was granted with additional restrictions, and that event is still planning to go ahead. I think it's September this year, with a maximum capacity of no more than 1,500, I think, to 2,000. Other than that, Chair, I think with regard to gambling, there isn't an awful lot that's happened over the last 12 months with gambling premises. I mean, as the report says, we have very few in Derbyshire Dales, and while some of them have been closed for a considerable time during the various lockdowns, some of them did maintain business. Other than that, Chair, I have nothing to add. I don't know whether Lee has. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Eileen. Have we got any questions? If you do, just hold your hand up, thank you, and Tommy will come with the mic. And then for the benefit of the microphone, for the video, would you just identify yourself, because we can't see you?
Sudbury. I've just got a question about the Licensing and Appeals Subcommittee hearings. I believe there was one that took place on the 15th of June regarding a festival at Darley Moor motor track. Has that not been recorded in here for this year's, or does it fall into a different year? And was it refused or
Thanks,
permitted?
Councillor Lyson. I'm going to pass that on to Lee.
Thank you, Councillor. I believe that that hearing just came a bit late to be included in this. The application was refused. I've heard this morning that they will be appealing.
Okay, what grounds was it refused?
It was refused generally on the grounds that the committee felt that the venue was unsuitable for a festival of that size.
Okay, what, under noise nuisance? I mean, there are...
Mostly noise nuisance.
Okay.
Well, it was refused under the licensing grounds. It was refused for public nuisance and public safety. The main two grounds.
Okay, and that's going to appeal. Do we think that appeal will be successful?
I can't comment at this moment. I've only just received basic grounds of appeal. I need to see more detailed grounds on why they consider that the decision was wrong.
Yeah, are you happy with that, Councillor? Yeah.
That's fine.
Councillor Wayne, we can see you.
Yeah, well, I shan't say my name then. If you can see me, that's good. Thanks for this, Alan. I didn't notice that it was a bit out of sync. It looked good to me. And thanks a lot. All I'm just want a bit of clarity on, really. Have we noticed any increase in the numbers already, as we hopefully are getting a bit further out of COVID and then we dip back into... Have numbers started to increase? That's the first thing. And I note your comment about complaints on the licensed premises, and you usually follow up with the telephone. Do you do a bit of investigative work without going in the premises as well? Are you allowed to do that? That's the second question. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Through your chair. The first question, numbers, it's very slowly they are starting to come in, applications for alcohol and entertainment type licences, but it is very slowly. Not too many of the temporary event notices. I mean, normally we would get those for things like summer fetes, PTA events, weddings, so that we're not starting to see them come in large numbers yet. But I expect they will do, ready probably for next year, next summer. Regarding complaints, we have actually started doing compliance visits now. This last couple of weeks, myself and the police and environmental health have done some joint visits to some of our more lively premises, I suppose we could call them. So yeah, we get as much information as we can before we go, but we do actually manage to visit, and we either go inside the premises or we sit out in the garden area. So yes, we're getting back to normal-ish.
Thank you, members. Any more questions? In that case, do we have someone to move that we accept the report as written? Moved by Councillor Wayne, seconded. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, Councillor. Yeah. So that is now passed and accepted. Moving on to. Oh, so beg your pardon. Sorry. Do forgive me. I'm pretty new to this, so you'll have to bear with me. And the format as well. A bit scary. Could we have all in favour, please show? Any against? None against. So that, thank you, is unanimous. Thank you for the prompt, Councillor Wayne. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. So we'll go back now. I do appreciate it. So have we got a mover that the minutes are accepted as a true and accurate record? And have we got a seconder? We have it moved and seconded. Can all in favour please show? Thank you. I'm obliged. And now moving on, thank you, to item 6, is it not? Yes. the Business and Planning Act 2020, an update report. Is to receive a report updating members on the implementation of the provisions of the Business and Planning Act 2020 in respect of temporary pavement licences and advisors of the government's plans to extend, I think that's advice of the government's plans to extend the licensing regime until the 30th of September 2022. Over to Mrs. Eileen Tierney.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, as you've said, this is an update report on the introduction of the temporary pavement licence regime that we implemented last August, I think it came in. The government's intention was it would be for 12 months until the end of September this year, just over 12 months, but we have received, and I've reported it in the report, confirmation that this regime will be extended for a further 12 months to the end of September 2022. We haven't had, well, as far as I'm aware, the regulations are still draft. I've not been made aware that they've been finalised or been made. I've not been in work for a week, so as far as I know, they haven't. So we're still awaiting that, and until that happens, then at the moment the licensing regime is supposed to end on the 30th of September this year. So anybody applying for a pavement licence now from me would only get it issued until the end of September this year. Anybody applying for a pavement licence once the regulations have been laid before Parliament and made, then their licences would be automatically granted until the end of September next year. Anybody with a pavement licence at the moment, and you'll see from the report that we have issued a fair number, they'll be able to apply again. There doesn't appear to be a renewal process or an automatic extension or anything like that at the moment, and there may be when the regulations come out, but it's likely they will have to apply again, and I think that's probably not a bad thing. That will give us an opportunity to have a look at how it's worked, and it will also give us an opportunity, if there have been any premises where it wasn't anticipated that there might be issues and there have been issues, then it will give us an opportunity to look at those and see whether or not we can do something to minimise any disturbance or whatever. So in the report then I've explained all that, and I've put in some comments that the Right Honourable Robert Jenricks made regarding extending it and regarding licensing or councils, I suppose, not so much licensing authorities, but acting as the licensing authority. They're encouraged to try, we are encouraged to try and accommodate as many of these applications as we can. Once we've had quite a large number of applications to date, there are a large number of premises that I'm still in discussions with over whether or not they need pavement licences. I mean, some of these premises in the Dales have been operating tables and chairs outside their premises for years and years, and they don't really get why they have to have a licence now. So we are in talks with a few of them. Again, the idea was originally that if they wanted a permanent pavement licence, for example, like Costa's or Greg's, on a permanent basis, not a temporary basis, then really that application should go to the county council, because they're the authority that grant pavement cafe licences, they call them, and they're permanent and renewable. At the moment they've suspended their service, so what I'm encouraging people to do is to get the temporary one anyway, now that we know the chances are it's going to be extended until next September, and then at least it's regularised and we can control it. And then if for any reason it reverts to the county council again and the temporary pavement licensing system is ended, then at least they've had a licence up to that point. Members might recall from last July when I think Tim took report to a meeting of the council about pavement licensing, because we thought it was going to come in a lot quicker than it did, or we were going to have to act a lot quicker than we did have to in the end. And members were told that there had been a cap placed by government on the fee, so the fee was capped at £100. I know Derbyshire County Council's fee for pavement cafe licences was a fair amount more than that, and I'm sure other councils that issued them under the old regime probably charged large fees as well, which may have been rather prohibitive to some premises, and so they probably didn't apply and just put the tables and chairs out. I think the idea is to encourage people to regularise it, so they talked about a £100 cap. At that council meeting last year, members resolved not to charge at all, because we thought it was just a one year regime. And what they did say at that time was that if the licensing system was extended, then we would re-look at the fee. And we are suggesting, I think, Chair, as one of the officer recommendations, that members do give some consideration to whether or not we should charge a fee, what it might be. And I don't think we're a fee-setting committee, so it would have to go to governance and resources as a recommendation from this committee, if you so chose to charge a fee. The actual process administratively it's not horrendously onerous, but it's similar to that of a temporary event notice under the Licensing Act. So it's only a couple of consultees that the application's got to go to. It does have to be verified when it comes in and make sure that the applicant has submitted everything that they should. So it's not hours of work, but it is work. And we weren't really expecting to get large numbers. I mean, we've dealt with sort of 20 pavement licenses, and the legal team and estates team and my team have dealt with something like 12 or 13 what we're calling sitting out licenses, and they're in effect a license to use council-owned land for the same purpose of eating, consuming food and drink outside. So altogether we're sort of 35, 36. I've probably got another 10 in the offing. So it's quite a lot of applications compared to the number that were licensed across Derbyshire before this temporary regime was brought in. And we are a small team, and resources, despite the fact the number of applications for licences has reduced over the last year, we have had an increase in the number of inquiries for advice, and inquiries about COVID restrictions and complaints really as well. So work hasn't dropped off, and doing these pavement licences did add an extra burden. And whilst it was acknowledged that to help business recover we wouldn't charge to start off with, and we probably wouldn't suggest £100 even. I mean, a temporary event notice is £21, as I think I said earlier, and it's a similar amount of work, although a temporary event notice has cost £21 since 2005, because those fees were set by government and we're not allowed to increase them. So I think that's a bit low. So that's the purpose of the report as well, Chair, is to update you on where we are with pavement licensing across Derbyshire Dales. I think it's going okay. I mean, it does bring problems of noise, because it would do. Anybody sitting outside in larger numbers than normal is going to increase noise from premises. But most of our premises are dealing with it, we think, fairly well. And as I say, Chair, the other reason is to suggest that perhaps if we do go ahead in September, extending the licences, that we perhaps are allowed to charge some fee. That's all I've got to say at the moment.
That's lovely,
Chair.
thank you, Eileen. So, colleagues, questions, anybody? Councillor Allison.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose looking at this, and if my maths is correct, we've probably lost about £3,500 worth of income from not charging for the licences. Just going forward, and whether there is any appetite to actually not charge again over the next year. Are you able to currently absorb the costs of administrating the administration of this scheme within your current budgets?
Who am I looking to for an answer? It's Tim to take that, please.
In terms of costs, yeah. I mean, we can do the work. We can absorb the work. It is additional work and does require some time. I talked about the average time taken for the average application. What actually takes the time is the odd application that gives rise to a large amount of interest that it goes towards. So there might be objection, there might be complications in the application around the location wanting to be used. For example, these are pavement licenses. By definition, they're right next to roads, and some of those roads aren't terribly suitable for a depot to decide to go. So those involve a fair amount of work and a fair amount of negotiation. At the moment, most of that's fallen to Eileen herself, rather than to the whole licensing team, and we will be transferring that work into the team. The officer recommendation a year ago when we considered this item is, as officers are meant to do, is to recommend the charging of a fee, because we are meant to cover our costs. At the moment, clearly we're not covering our costs in terms of administering this, because we're not charging anything at all. I fully understand the reasons why it was decided that a fee should be levied, because the council very properly wanted to help business to recover, and they've had a year's worth of that facility for free. Eileen referred to the previous street cafe licences that the county council administered, and the county council did charge £300 for those as a starting price, then I think £50 per extra chair or something like that. It was a fair amount of money. The officer recommendation, based purely on pragmatism, is that we should introduce a fee, and it probably ought to be towards the upper end of the £100 maximum.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think will cover your costs for this?
In terms of covering the cost, probably on average around about £80 at the moment.
Thank you.
Happy with that? Yep. Any more questions? Yes, Councillor O'Brien.
Councillor Peter O'Brien from Hallisage and Eam and Grindleford and Abney. The two applications which for pavement licences which were refused, can you give a brief outline as to what the reasons were for that?
And that's for Eileen. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair. The first one that was refused was from Smith's Tavern in Ashbourne. And I don't know if you're familiar with Ashbourne. It's at the bottom of the Marketplace Road, for want of a better word, bottom of Buxton Road, on the one-way system as you're coming out of Ashbourne. There isn't any it's probably half a pavement outside the front door, which was where they were intending people to be. That was an objection from the Highways Authority and from the Police Authority, and to be perfectly honest, from our own authority as well. That was the first one. The second one was the King's Head at Bonsall, and the reason for that was, I perhaps should have said that our statutory consultee, so we've chosen our own consultees, but the statutory one is still the Highways Authority. And the Highways Authority objected to that one because the area that they showed on the plan directly outside the front door of the premises is actually highway, it's road. In fact, we've actually had 3 that are refused. No, sorry, 2 refused, that's right, yeah. It's roadway, it's actual road, you know, where vehicles could be. So that was the reason. It was just public safety for those 2.
Does that answer the question? Yeah? Happy? Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Wayne.
Yeah, thank you. The actual 10 at £21 for temporary event notice, that seems very cheap, but hey ho, you said that it had been for a number of years. The first question is there a lot of difference between the county council charging £300? There's a lot more work on a permanent licence compared to a temporary licence. That's the first one.
Right. Through you, Chair. My theory is that when the county council received applications for permanent pavement licences, they do send an inspector out. The onus is on them to go out. They do the measuring. They do whatever else they have to do in that field. These are supposed to be, I wouldn't say light touch, but they're supposed to put more of the onus on the applicant. So the applicant has to submit plans, nothing, not professionally drawn plans. They can draw their own plan, but they do have to submit a plan. They do have to submit photographs of the type of furniture they're going to use, whereas I'm assuming the county council would use a resource to go out and inspect those. We don't do that because they have to send us a photograph of they have a notice to display for 7 days. They have to send us a photograph when they display the notice as well. So the work seems to be on the applicant. If those applications come in and we miss the fact that the plans haven't got sufficient measurements on, because it's not really something we're terribly familiar with, then when we send it to the Highways Authority, they will ask us to go back to the applicant for more information if it isn't sufficient. So I'm guessing that that's where the savings are.
The other point was, I believe that there's only ourselves in North East Derbyshire that are not currently charging a fee, and certain ones are charging £100 and £80. What do you have you calculated ballpark figure about what it would cost per event notice, not event notice, but per pavement licence? How much do you think it's costing the organisation? Because I fully appreciate that at the last meeting we agreed that we wouldn't charge for a year, but there's also enforcement, there's potential enforcement that could come later on that may need to be calculated in. So we haven't got a lot of time before September if we're wanting to consider this. So if you could answer that. Thank you.
Through you, Chair. Yes, that is correct. It is just Derbyshire Dales and North East Derbyshire and Bolsover Alliance who aren't charging across Derbyshire. Every other authority has gone for £100 ballpark figure. That's it. How that's been calculated, I don't know, and would probably follow the same pattern. Sorry, I've forgotten the rest of your question.
So I'm forgetting it now. But basically, have you given a rough idea of how much you think that it costs you per licence?
Yes, sorry. I have given a rough idea, which was perhaps why Tim mentioned the £80. Basically, I did allude to a temporary event notice, and whilst that's, again, the applicant does quite a lot of that work, there isn't as much information that they have to supply with a temporary event notice as there is with a pavement licence, so there isn't as much chasing up, and it's sort of on an average that we thought of the fee, because basically you'll get some that are perfect, people will put them in, that everything will be there, you won't have to ask for anything, and then some people will put them in and it'll be one phone call after another to get the application complete. We have spoken with our can't remember his name. We've spoken with the gentleman who's looking at applications through the website, that sort of thing, and we are looking at we've got a draft application process in it, but when tested it wasn't foolproof. It asks you to upload these several documents that you need, but to be honest, you could upload a blank piece of paper for one, you know what I mean? So it's so we're preferring people to email us their applications at the moment, because we don't want the 7 days to start until the application's complete. If we do it as an online application, it will go automatically to the police and to the highways and to environmental health, so that'll take a little bit of effort out of our resource process. But so at the moment, I suppose if you average 50 a year, just for the sake of argument, there might be 45 that are easy, and there might be 5, as Tim said, that take forever, and take those. You need those resources to be able to accommodate that. Plus, as you say, there may well be enforcement issues. People, I think, at the moment, when I say people, members of the public, are probably being fairly tolerant at the moment to allow food and drink businesses to get, to recover. If they thought that the outdoor scene, for want of a better word, was going to be a permanent thing, they might not be so tolerant, and we may well end up having to do more enforcement, and that would be done in conjunction with environmental health. I don't know whether Tim's anything to add to that, Chair.
Over to you, Tim.
When we were looking at it, we were thinking that the average application takes just over half a day, which is a fair amount of time, 4 or 5 hours, and £80 seemed a reasonable amount based on that.
Are you happy with that, Councillor? And Tommy, I think we've got just for the camera.
Councillor Mark Wakeman from Baker Ward.
Thank you, Councillor Wakeman.
Just a suggestion through you, Chair, to Eileen. Do we actually see their insurance for having the tables and chairs on the pavement? Do we ask to see the public and liability insurance?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Yes, we do.
Thank you.
For the pavement cafe licences, it's £5 million, and it does have to be public liability insurance. And if we get ones in that are less than that, we do chase up the correct one. The sitting out licences that the council issues for our own land, the public liability insurance they have to provide is £10 million.
Happy with that. Do we have any more questions? Seem to be quite happy. So, would someone be kind enough to move that we accept it as written? That's go. Is that another question? Yeah.
That's not a question. I'm just asking, do we have to propose putting forward a fee to governance and resources?
Thank you.
Through you, Chair. It's more of a fact of, because this is the licence committee, the decision is for GNR, but it's almost a matter of respect for this committee it's in your remit. So if you want to suggest another fee, that's within your...
I propose that we put forward a fee of £80, which will cover the council's costs in processing these applications.
So, just to summarise then, as a committee, it's our recommendation when it goes forward to GNR that it becomes £80. Is that what we're suggesting? Yeah. Yep. And it's been moved and it's been seconded. So the £80 is... Are we agreed on that? Please show if you are happy with that.
Can I just jump in?
Of course.
Just to confirm the wording is that this is £80 for pavement and sitting out licences. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Okay. So, are we agreed on £80? Yeah. All in favour of that, please show. That is unanimous. Thank you. That will go forward to GNR. Thank you, Councillor Allison. We're moving on now. That's been accepted and moving on. Yep.
Sorry, Chair, can I just confirm that we've got two recommendations. The second one was the application fee that Ministry of Arranged put in place to extend the licensing regime. I take it councillors are happy with that. Can we just confirm, because that is one of the recommendations?
Yes. Thank you for that. Again, do we need to move and second that? Or do we have a mover for that then? Please? Yep, we do several. Yeah, thank you. Do we have a seconder? Yes, we do. So it's been moved, it's been seconded. Would you care to show? All in favour. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for your forbearance and tolerance, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to item number 7. What we have here is item 7. It's a taxi and the private hire licensing annual report, and this is to receive a report providing members with a summary of the work relating specifically to taxi and private hire licensing undertaken by the licensing team during the last financial year. Particular attention is paid to actions following the implementation of the reviewed taxi and private hire licensing policy in May 2018. The report also provides a brief overview of the progress made since the last meeting in implementing the requirements of the statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards issued by the Department for Transport, the DFF. I think that's, is this Eileen's report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So yes, I haven't got an awful lot to say in respect of anything that's not actually in the report. The national standards that we discussed at a previous meeting, national conditions that we should be all looking to attach to taxi and private hire vehicle licences, were some of the issues we'd already addressed, and some of the issues we need to address. Those issues at the last meeting, we had a list of those which are ready now to go out to the trade, to get the trade to understand that some of those things that in the past we haven't wanted to attach as conditions are now mandatory, or going to be mandatory, because all authorities are being advised to adopt them. Some of the issues were mostly around safeguarding. So an enhanced DBS check is something that we have always insisted on for our taxi drivers and operators and private hire drivers and operators. The drivers are also required to sign up to the DBS online subscription service so that we can check their record annually rather than 3 yearly, which is what we've been doing in the past. The national standards have suggested that that's even more stringent, and that authorities move to check those 6 monthly. So that is something that we've put in the proposal to the trade, to tell them that is one thing we will be doing. So they will need to keep those subscriptions up to date. There are other things that in taxi and private hire licensing, licensing that have been amiss really for years. A driver is able to apply for a licence at one authority, and if for any reason that licence were to be refused, there's really no onus or no requirement other than asking the driver to declare to another authority that he or she have had an application refused. So this has long been a problem in the bigger authorities, where they're perhaps dealing with hundreds and thousands of drivers, to be able to check their criminal record is one thing, but to be able to check whether or not they've been refused a licence is something that's been amiss. So I think we had a report last year or the year before to committee to recommend that we join up to the National Revocation and Refusals Register. Now, the Local Government Association in conjunction with NAFIN, which I think is the National something fraud, I'm not quite sure, they're going to run it, the scheme, the NAFIN are. We have to join up to it. We got permission from the council to do that, to pay the annual fee. And I'm in the process of the application now with them. We're working through it together, me and somebody at NAFIN, so that we can do it properly and do it with data protection in mind. I mean, we have to tell all our drivers that this is what is going to happen. So if for any reason in the future their licences are revoked or refused, they have to know that they will go on a national register. We have to go back, I had a conversation with them today at NAFIN, we have to go back some years to ones that we've refused within so many years, and we have to tell them that we are going to give their information to the register as well. We're going to upload it to the register when the register goes live for us. So there's quite a lengthy process to go through before we can actually say we are members of it, and I'm working on that at the moment. One or two of the other things that I mentioned earlier, safeguarding training is another one. We did agree to do safeguarding training for all our drivers and operators on a 3-yearly basis. When we consulted with the county council, because they have the safeguarding board up there, and they asked us, would we put in our policy in 2018, would we not just put in that we wanted all our drivers to have safeguarding training, but that we wanted them to have refresher training after 3 years. So we're coming up now to 3 years in August, September time. I think the training package that the county council put together for the districts to implement is under review, and it's with COVID restrictions, people not being in the office, etc. I think it's still under review, and it may well be that we might have to come up with some kind of safeguarding refresher course ourselves, so that it continues, you know, that the ones who've got the training do get their renewals in. It is actually a condition of our licence, but it would be wrong, obviously, to treat it as a breach if we're not able to provide that training. So it may well be that we might have to move it on slightly. New drivers have to do the training within 6 months of getting a badge. Again, we've not been able to provide it, and we have got some new drivers. Most of them are actually doing school contracts, so they do get some training from the county direct, so we're not too worried about those at the moment. We did agree, I think it was this committee that agreed, that they can attend safeguarding training at any of the Derbyshire authorities. It doesn't have to be Derbyshire Dales, but it does have to be in Derbyshire because of the Derbyshire package that Derbyshire County Council developed. So I understand none of the authorities have been doing any sessions up until now, but I understand that North East Derbyshire and Bolsover Alliance are about to start doing theirs again. So I'm going to speak to those and see what package they're using, and whether or not the people we've got who require an update could have it with them for now. Really, Chair, I don't think there's anything more. I mean, again, that we've got the consultation ready to go out to the trade, as I say, and to the public about these more stringent conditions, etc. We'll report any responses back to the next committee. Things like joining the National Revocation and Refusals Register will require a change in policy, as will some of the other issues. So I'm guessing what we'll be doing is coming back to you in September with a reviewed taxi licensing policy on those 9 or 10 points, for you to review and hopefully approve to go forward to council, so that by the end of 2021 we should have got the new policy with all the things that the government intends nationally, with all of those incorporated if they weren't already. That's the plan. That was a bit convoluted, Chair, sorry.
Only a bit, and I understood it. Did everybody else? And we'll soon find out, because are there any questions? We have. Councillor O'Brien.
Yes, a couple of questions, Chair, through you. If drivers are reluctant or refuse to sign up to the, I forget the precise terminology you use, the 6 monthly DBS online check, what is the council's current policy in that respect? And my second question is, on the safeguarding, is it your intention that all drivers who should have been required to undertake safeguarding training and refresher training are required to do so?
Okay. So in answer to the first question, if they were to object or refuse to have a 6-monthly check carried out. I mean, as part of the consultation, we will be saying to them that that is our intention. Our intention is that because every driver will be already signed up to the online subscription, we'll be doing the checks 6 monthly and not annually as we do at the moment, because that's a government recommendation. If they object, then I don't really know what the sanction would be, but it would be, because it wouldn't be policy at the moment, although I think our current policy says that we can carry out checks when we want to. I think we can carry them out with the licence, when the licence is due for renewal, and any time in between. I don't know whether Tim can help out.
Yeah, I'm going to bring Tim in if I can. He's nodding away there.
I can come in there, Chair. The current policy is relatively weak on this, which is why we want to amend it to make it stronger. And basically the intention would be that if a driver didn't do that, they would be failing a policy requirement and would be brought before committee for that to be determined. We have a penalty point system within the policy, and the suggestion, I mean, this is clearly a very serious issue, and the suggestion would be that this would be something that should come before a hearing, the usual appeals panel of 3 members.
And the second question, Chair, for Councillor O'Brien, to do with the safeguarding training. Yes, it is our intention that everybody will have that training.
Happy with that? Yep. Thank you. So, we have another question. Councillor, it's Councillor Lees. Yeah.
Councillor Lees, Ashbourne North. Yeah, have we got any on the knowledge test, Eileen? Is the refreshers on that, or is it done it once, that's it, or is that like 3 yearly, or any?
Through you, Chair. No, they just do it once. Well, some of them do it 3 times if they don't pass it. But yeah, they just do it once, and it lasts. I think so. Yes, seems to.
Happy, Councillor? Yep. Anybody else? No? Everybody happy with that? So, do we have a mover and a seconder, please, to accept it as written? We do have so it's been moved and it's been seconded. All in favour, please show. All against? None. That's the end of the agenda, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a thank yous in order, because I think this is our first socially distanced event in our own home, is it not? Yeah, so we're the guinea pigs. So I'd like to thank you very much indeed on behalf of the officers and the chair for being so tolerant and flexible. Thank you and good night.